Hi, everyone. Let me just get our speaker for today added on here. Just give me a moment. Where are you? So she should be here in a moment.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I am
I am
great.
doing
How
well.
are
I
you?
just was at a Naturally Austin event that I just ran back home to take this live. Lab.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. You look
Thank
beautiful,
you
by the
so
way. Your
much.
hair
And
looks so good.
I'm like admiring your lipstick. I absolutely love the color. Have you been?
Thank you. Well, good. I have had a really good day. For those of you that are not in Austin or
The
Texas
weather.
based that have just joined, yesterday we had or 2 days ago, we had a tornado rip through Round Rock and it ripped through right where I live, just down the road, I'm
Oh
not
my
kidding you,
gosh.
1,000 feet from where I live. Yeah, and it was bad. I mean, there's like chimneys that have fallen into the roofs, like through the house. There's giant chunks of roof ripped out. There's trees broken in half. There was like giant pieces of shrapnel all over the
I
highway.
saw this video
It was
of
bad.
the tornado ripping through like a Walmart parking lot, and it was so terrifying. And
That Walmart parking lot is right next to where I
oh
live.
my
We're on
gosh,
the other
okay,
side
so
of the
that's pretty
highway.
scary. I mean, and so we moved here from like the East Coast, right? So haven't really experienced like tornadoes. And I know when there was like that whole alert, they were like, okay, find an interior room. And I live on like in a bungalow, and all our, there isn't an interior room. So we're like, what do we do? And our bathroom has windows too. And so we sat in the hallway eating chips because I think we were like all stressed eating. But yeah, it was really scary. But I'm happy to hear that you're safe and everything is okay.
Thank goodness. Yeah. And
Good.
our office was okay too. And
Good.
everything is okay. Um, So now that we've had a few people jump
Hi,
on, which
Sarah.
I'm so excited about, I will go ahead and formally get us started. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Taylor Tmenka, and I am a small business attorney in Austin, Texas. And I do these weekly lives where I bring on women in business. And today I have brought on Sara Shah of Journ Beauty. And I'll let her give her full introduction, but basically she used to be an attorney just like me, and saw a niche in the beauty market that was really being underserved. And she jumped on that opportunity and started this wonderful business and is now a very successful business owner who recently moved her business
Yes.
down to Austin, Texas. So with that, Sara, my first question is, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started
Yeah, I'd love to.
in doing
So
Journ?
Journ, I love like the different pronunciations of Journ. I like we get Journ like really cool names, but it's Journ, and it's simply short for journey. And it was born through my journey with my skin. So in my previous life, as you mentioned, I used to be an attorney, and as someone like a New York City attorney, like cliche as it sounds, but had very little counter space and time for like my healthcare and beauty regimen. And so for me, like it was using a bunch of products for my skincare and then covering it up with a bunch of makeup. And even after all the effort that I was putting into my routine, I couldn't look like I just had good, healthy skin. Like that's all I wanted to do was look like I, had natural looking, healthy skin. And so I turned to the industry, and having been a makeup artist many years prior and like a beauty junkie, like I turned to the industry to find products that would like really do two things, right? That were like lawyers speak, is like two goals. Let's IRAC this.
Yes.
So two things I wanted to accomplish. One is I just wanted them to simplify my routine, and two, I just wanted to look like I had natural looking healthy skin. couldn't find any products to do that. And in my journey of looking for these products, I learned that though there's been brands in most recent years that are addressing like the shade issue for people of color, but no one is really focusing on the underlying skin concerns of people of color, right? So issues like dark circles, hyperpigmentation, discoloration, you know, dullness, sallow skin, like those are all issues that weren't being addressed. And so one day over dinner, I turned to Mir, my husband, and I said, look, I have this problem, like what, this is like a white space in the industry I think I've identified. And he said, well, let's create it. And it was a little bit easy for him to like say that. Because by that point, like I thought in my head, like
Wow.
beauty just transcended from heaven, right? Like it just showed up on the shelves, and that was like, didn't really understand like what goes into it. But he had been sort of like the first ops hire at a variety of different startups and small businesses, and really knew like how to take an idea and execute on it to a final product. So we paired like my vision for my products with his background and experience, and we launched Journ 5 months before the pandemic. And, you know, thankfully, like we did great.
Wow.
And, you know, and so, yeah, that was kind of like the beginnings of Journ.
Wow. And I love hearing your story. And I love the name Journ, like your journey. That's so personal. Because, and also everything you're talking about, like the hyperpigmentation, the, you know, wrinkles, the dryness, everything. I mean, we all experience that, but you're right. There wasn't anyone that was really doing that for women of color. It's a very, the beauty market is such a huge industry. And yet for people of color, it's really very, very small. The amount of like brands that actually will put the money and the care and really care that needs to go into it, and you know, the work. It's not just like a slapstick project. It requires a lot of knowledge and dedication, which leads me to my next question. So I know that you had a million trials and error getting to your final product. Tell me what that was like, and how many
oh my gosh
trials did you go through?
A lot. It was 2 years of developing. And so when we, so basically like with our first suite of products, right, which are color correctors with skincare built into it. So it's kind of like a skincare plus makeup hybrid product. And the idea behind the color correction was, you know, right now, like we use if you had to conceal an area of concern, like you use a bunch of concealer and then foundation. And it leaves your skin looking cakey. So we decided on color corrections because we believe that that was truly the way to achieve like natural looking skin without a ton of product. So for us, like I had a very clear idea, and maybe, you know, I guess like being naive was a good part of it, because, you know, every lab we talked to said like, we can't create it, we can't create it. Finally, we got 5 labs to agree, sold them the vision. We're like, this is going to be awesome. Like we need to launch this product. So 5 labs we started formulating with, and you know, very slowly we ended up with 2, and then finally 1. So with the 1 lab that we were actually able to create this product with, which is like a high, you know, a skincare formula that lives with makeup around it, right? That has actives at efficacious levels that is really going to address the skin issues. We did, I think, about like 30 or 40 iterations of the formulation. So over like the course of 2 years, and it's a long process where like you approve a formula and then they would put it up on stability testing, and it may still fail, and then you kind of have to go to the drawing board. But yeah, we definitely spent, I would say like 2 full years of just back and forth testing to really achieve like the right pigmentation, the right formulation to not only like work for medium to deeper skin tones for all, but really like the pigmentation is perfect for that, and look natural, but also help address those issues over time.
Wow. I can't believe that. First of all, I can't believe that any lab wouldn't want to do this. They just didn't believe in it. Like, that's crazy, because it sounds like such a great idea to me just from the get-go. But wow. Okay, so you started with 5 labs. How did you go about, like,
to be honest, it was just a matter of like, who can help get to that final goal, right? Like, so what we also didn't want to do is we really wanted to add active ingredients from the skincare side into the formula, which is an anhydrous formula, which is very limiting as to what you can do. So for us, it was like, we definitely had some labs like over the course of like working with their chemists, like we hoped that it would work out with, but it was really a matter of who could help us achieve that end goal. And we didn't want to compromise on efficacy of the formula or like the texture, like we wanted it to be perfect. And for me, it was so important for the formulation to look and feel like skin, right? So the formula, as you take it out, it like looks, we always say like it behaves like butter. So it's like room temperature butter, and then you melt it, and then it literally turns into like a skin type finish and consistency that you just thin layer, highly pigmented. So for us, it was really a matter of like which lab could really help us get to that end goal. And we didn't want to compromise on the qualities of the product that we wanted. And we were so grateful that one of them did. And that's, what you see today in the market.
Wow, that's awesome. So another thing that I think is really unique, and like you were a true startup, like you stated earlier, like where you were seeking outside investors and seeking, monetary contributions. How has that been for you? I know you've had success, but how, just being a woman, have you seen a difference between how investors approach you or respond to you?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I think I wouldn't say they respond any differently to us, but I think the biggest struggle we've experienced is explaining the problem, right? So most of the, and we're actively fundraising right now. We've been sort of like bootstrapped and friends and family so far, but to really accelerate growth, we need to fundraise. But the biggest challenge is, we are mostly sitting across like, middle-aged men that are white that really don't understand the problem, right? So I'm a woman of color trying to explain this issue of like dark circles and hyperpigmentation. And I have to, just color correction, for example, like, most women too may be intimidated by the idea of color correction. Explaining that to like someone who's not a makeup user, who doesn't experience those pain points has been really challenging. So I think that we've already lost, sort of the interest when it's like not a pain point that resonates, right? So like, just to give an example, like in meetings, like I should to be like, imagine like there's a white wall, and on the white wall, there's a red mark. And now if you put like 10 coats of like paint equals concealer on it, it'll look cakey. So yeah, it's been challenging, but I do think that there is a great, like we're starting to, so for us now, we're starting to be very selective in the investors that we want to approach, right? And we want them to be women. We want them to be hopefully women of color that, that just hear about the product and they're like, I get it, right? You're solving real problems. Because we can talk about like, we put slides from like real people and real testimonials in our deck, but I really think you need the right partners that understand the problem to really support you just beyond the investment too.
Yeah, that is such a great point, because as a lawyer that your investors could potentially be owning equity in your company. If they own a certain amount, could have a certain say in your company. And so it is so important to have investors that believe in your vision and don't want to change that vision and stick with that mission. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So what advice would you give to someone that has never approached an investor before but wants to give a first pitch?
I think the biggest, most important thing is for yourself really understand like what problem you're solving in the world, right? So I think you need to just have a clear, like I always say, like it's always important to be like, keep your eye on the goal, right? Like what problem are you solving, and then work backwards from there and then provide solutions. So, really understanding like what is the pain point that you're looking to solve? How are you solving it? How are you making this world a better place, or helping in some way, shape, or form? And, really having that piece clear for yourself before going out and seeking investment, I think is really critical. Like, I mean, speaking from personal experience, like just, you want to do a lot of things, right? Like I want to create products that do X, Y, and Z, and I also want them to be simplifying. But I think just having that full understanding for yourself and always keeping your eye on what problem are you solving, right? And you'll have, and focusing your products after that, right? So always being like mission focused, and then let the products follow that.
I love that. Love that. Okay, so how did you get in, like the contact information for an investor? Like, how did you even begin that process of knowing like these are certain people that are willing to give money to companies? Did you search like, joint or not joint, capital investors, or what did you do?
I think the first thing is always leveraging your contacts. right? Having warm intros to investors are going to be by far superior. Real life people can vouch for you. So definitely leverage your network. Any meeting that you have, even whether it's with another founder, right? They're not an investor, they're another founder or someone in the space, like always ask them, like, do you know any investors that you could recommend me to? I think it's important. I always feel like you are as much vetting them as they're vetting you, right? Do your ideologies and beliefs and how you wish to run your business, do they align with the investors? So I think it's like a two-way street. So really having like founders or people that you trust or know that could recommend you to these investors, I think is really key. And another great resource, and I'm not as good on as I should be, and I know Mir, who I think is in the live right now, is probably laughing. But Twitter is a great resource. I just posted one tweet after like God knows how long, and I got like 3 intros. So definitely leveraging Twitter, engaging in different dialogue and communication with investors and sharing like what you've learned and meeting other people. So I think that's amazing to leverage, especially, well, now things are finally starting to open back up, but in a world where we were sort of like just behind our screens all day. Twitter is definitely a great tool. But yeah, always asking, like, no matter who you meet, always asking for intros, leveraging your own network. And you'll be surprised, like I came from a legal background and I did not know anyone in like the CPG space or like the startup world, and completely being new and green to this whole thing. I'm like, how do I even go about doing this? So I think definitely leverage your network, and you'll be surprised like how many amazing contacts and connections you'll make through your network.
That's really great. So did you think that being a lawyer helped you in your business journey or did not help you? Because I know that we learn certain habits as lawyers that maybe are not conducive for the business world.
It's funny. It definitely helped because we didn't have to like hire legal to do a lot of like the initial setup and like all of that fun stuff, or not so fun stuff now looking back. But I think it definitely brought this like level, like I think law school is, or just having like a legal career did more than just the legal side of things, right? Like I think it taught me a lot, like how to like working hard and being resilient and being very systematic and methodical and, all of that. Like I think IRAC, I don't know if you remember that issue. It's a legal term. It was like you had to, every essay would have to have like issue, rule, analysis, and conclusion. So I kind of do that to different aspects of life anyways. But having sort of those like life lessons or just qualities that I acquired over the years of being a lawyer, being in law school have been helpful. I do think that the one area, because I think I was also like a structured person in addition to being a lawyer and kind of like very much like systematic, it was challenging to kind of just step outside my comfort zone or like step outside like minutes and hours to do things. Like I remember like I was sitting once and I was like, okay, I need to do like some creative work and we're gonna like name our products, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 hours and in 30 minutes I'm going to come up with one name and second name in the next 30. So like I was bucketing it, very similar to like my lawyer world, and it didn't happen, right? Like 4 hours, like 1 hour went by and I'm like, oh, I should have had 2 product names by now, and I don't. And I have 2 more to go, and I just like at the end of the 4th hour I was like, okay, it's not going to happen this way. Like it just does not happen, and you kind of have to let creativity like flow, and it might take you 2 weeks or it might take you 20 minutes, and you just cannot like box that as I try to in like billable hour format. But yeah, so I think it definitely helped in many ways, but it also challenged what I already kind of was used to in a lot of other ways, which was, it's been very liberating, like not allowing myself the space to like be creative. Like I always say that, which has been like super refreshing and liberating.
Yeah, I bet. I discovering that in doing small business law and switching from family law, it's more creative. There's a lot more for relationships too and connection, and it's like a breath of fresh air.
Totally. It is nice.
So I know that starting a business is crazy scary, especially if you were jumping into like something like what you were doing, going from attorney to product-based business where you have no experience. Um, Fear can take over and or imposter syndrome, and you don't think that you're good enough or can do it. You obviously have overcome a lot of that or all of it because you've started a successful business and clearly believe in yourself. So can you give our audience maybe tips on how they can overcome their own fear in
Definitely. And
starting their own business?
the biggest, and I just want to like preface this by saying like I'm still on my journey and I don't consider myself like, you know, not nowhere near like where I want to be. But I think like the biggest first thing is like for me, like the most important thing is that I in my core believed in like what I wanted to create, right? I knew I was solving a problem. I talked to, you know, being the lawyer that I was, I interviewed like hundreds of women being makeup artists and friends and aunts and, you know, and I was just like, this is a true problem that I want to solve. And I think that that was so powerful in and of itself that I didn't really think beyond like, you know, to this day, like I don't think about like failure, like, and I will fail 100 times along the way, but I know that it will not stop me from my end goal. And I think the biggest thing is like, you have to be clear on like your end goal. And there's going to be a lot of hiccups along the way. There's going to be a lot of like no's, like you'll have 9 no's and one yes, right? And it's just as long as you truly believe in that you want the end goal or where you want to go, I think that that helps overcome that fear. And just being like, you just have to have conviction in yourself and in your you know, the goal that you're trying to accomplish and in the story that that you want to share with the world, and the products that will follow. So I think that's like the most important thing. And just don't get discouraged. I mean, I think the one thing that I guess law school is, or taking the bar and failing it by 1 point the first time, it's just taught me resilience. So I think the biggest thing is to just be resilient and not let, you know, any no's discourage you. It's just a matter of like, how do I step back, learn from what I've gone through, and how can I do things a little bit differently to get to my end goal?
Nice. Awesome. So do you have any advice for anyone wanting to start a business that is specifically like product based where they would have to like find a lab and do all of that complicated research and science stuff that I'm not great at?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give you is just like, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of research, right? So the first thing, like, let's say if you want to like start a beauty brand, right? Like I started like Googling like labs, right? And then making friends with them and then talking to them about like if they weren't able to help, you know, recommending other people that they could also vet and vouch for. And again, referrals are like so powerful and key, but it's really as simple as that. I think like having like, what is a problem that you're trying to solve? How are you going to solve it? And it might be that some things are just, you know, not possible, or you have to like tweak them to be a certain way. And then how are you going to get there? And then just really starting the search. And being personally, like being the, I guess, like having like the legal approach to like problem solving, did a lot of research. Like I talked to a lot of people, you know, tried and tested, just kind of did that while I was searching for labs and meeting with them and finding out their capabilities, and then like learning that, you know, they maybe weren't a fit. But I really do wish like there is a resource like similar to like Yelp for like, you know, for contract manufacturers in beauty or even like food or anywhere else, but there isn't such a resource that exists. But yeah, you just have to Google, you just have to talk, and people want to help, right? So if I got like a salesperson on the phone at a lab and they were just like, oh, I can't like help you, we don't make this type of product, like always asking for like, do you know anybody that does? And they'll recommend you to someone, and then they might be like, oh, we're too big for you. Oh, can you recommend me someone that's smaller? How, you know, what are they like? Like, what do you have any, you know, can you tell me anything about like the way they do business? Like you can ask more questions. So yeah, I think definitely research, like, you know, Google is like your best friend. And then just coming up with like a systematic, like I put together like spreadsheets of like, you know, and it's a lot of like, you have to chase them too. You know, I laugh, I'm like, literally finding a lab is like chasing, but I know there's also services out there that you could hire them, like consultants that could help you develop products. But I know like for first time founders, it might not be feasible. So definitely just Google, search, call, and ask around for recommendations.
Nice. Okay. Um, what is one obstacle that, and I know starting a business, there's a million that you encounter, but what is one obstacle that kind of sticks out in your mind and you think it's like a defining moment to where you made it or you have done
Yeah, I
something?
think the
Does
one
that make
for
sense?
like just speaking about our first suite of products that is you know, active level ingredients in makeup that really do help solve certain skin concerns. One of the obstacles we got is like, you know, beauty or just the way labs are set up, right? Like they're set up like Sephora, like you have skincare and you have makeup, right? And when you come in and you say like at the intersection of both, like labs go, no, like they put their hands up in the air. They're like, we can't do that. This is outside of our wheelhouse. This is outside the box. Like, you know, so I think for us, like that was a big defining moment when we were finally able to do something by leveraging, like literally they had to have chemists from skincare and chemists from makeup in one room to like talk about like how we're going to make this work. So for us, like that was a big defining moment. And an obstacle that, you know, we weren't sure, even after like 2 years of having invested my whole life into Journ, knowing that it may not work out. So I think once we were able to get to a formula that passed, you know, the necessary testing so we could like launch it, like that was a huge defining moment for us. But it was always like about challenging and thinking outside the box.
Wow. Also, as a woman, I'm like a little thrown that scientists couldn't come together with skincare and makeup. Like, I guess I had thought that those were the same. And, you know, when they're coming up with makeup and all of that, it would have been very similar. So that makes a lot of sense why so many products make your skin dry out or they just look cakey and weird
Yeah.
because
The
they're
way they're
not
siloed,
joined.
like the
That
way the
makes
labs are
so
set
much.
up, like there's skincare and then there's makeup, right? And I think that in most recent years that gap is bridging, like becoming smaller and smaller, but it's still not there yet because like the labs are just not set up for it, right? Like I've seen it on the other side where they have like different areas of the lab that do skincare, and then there's different areas that do color, and you know, there isn't much overlap within the chemists. But I think that with people asking for more clean beauty, more healthier for you beauty, multifunctional products, I think that gap is getting smaller. But I think it's still like, you know, you walk into Sephora, like they're still separated, right? Which is hopefully going to change in the near future. We're going to be right in the center. That's what I say.
Yeah, you are. Okay, last question, and then I will let you get back to your busy life. What advice do you have specifically for women of color?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think the biggest thing is like we as women of color maybe have unique needs that, you know, like for me, I had a unique need with my skin. I felt like it was not product offerings in the market today weren't addressing my needs, and so I created it. I think, you know, if you have a need and you've said, oh, you know, this is a problem and I don't see a solution for it, like go for it and run with it. Because if you experience that problem, I'm sure I experience it, and there's a lot of other women that experience it, and maybe they don't even realize they have that problem because they figured out a way to hack it, right? Like for instance, like with us, like when I was interviewing women and I was like, what do you do for your dark circles? And they would say, I mix like 3 concealers, or like I use one concealer, then I use another concealer. And I'm like, well, you don't have to do that, right? Like once I create my product. And they were like, wait, what do you mean? So it's almost like they didn't realize, like, you know, they could have had a better way because it didn't exist. So if you have, you know, a problem that you think you can solve, like definitely go for it. Because if you're experiencing that issue, maybe other people are as well. And we could definitely use like, you know, I get so excited when I see women of color like in brands, and I want to support them, and you know, they're so supportive of me. So yeah, definitely go for it. And if I can do anything to support you, if you're in this live right now and are thinking about an idea, like reach out, because I am happy to help and share whatever I've learned through my journey.
Thank you for that, for offering that. You're so sweet. Um, Last note here. I got my undergrad degree in public relations and took a ton of advertising classes and all sorts of fun things. But one of the rules of thumb was that if one person speaks out and says a comment about something, for every one person, 5 people have that same issue, but are not saying anything about it. So what you're saying, you're exactly right. If you do have an issue or a problem or something, then everyone else is experiencing it just like you are. No one's talking about it because we've been conditioned to think
and we just kind of like pick and choose some of the options offered to us. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I love full supporter of like women, women of color entrepreneurs. So yes, we need more.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. Any last closing comments before we go?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought from the audience. I don't think there were any questions, right? But
Okay.
no, I don't think I see any. But yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on your live today. It was, I know we finally got to spend some time in person. I'm so excited to have another fellow friend in Austin. But yeah, just if there's anything I can do to help if you're thinking about starting a business, just want to chat, you can definitely reach out to the Journ Beauty handle, which is where I'm live from. And you can just send a DM straight to me. Either I will grab it or someone will direct it right to me. I'm happy to chat. And yeah, thank you once again. And it was so great being on your live today.
Of course. Thank you. And I will be sure to link and tag all of your accounts in the description so everyone will have that information. Oh, I just saw someone who's looking forward to trying your product. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and check us out next Wednesday. I go live every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Either it's just me talking about some legal or business concept, or I have someone, the beautiful Sara here on to talk about business and just what it's like to start a business as a woman. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.